Hey there, and welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be discussing baseball games for the Nintendo 64, including those that were exclusive to the Japanese market. The Nintendo 64 was fortunate enough to have a diverse selection of baseball games on the platform during its lifetime. And during this era, I was a kid that was obsessed with baseball, and I was coming fresh off many hours into SNES and Genesis baseball games. Now, the quality and style variations of games available on the platform are a far different landscape than what we see today, as Sony has a lock on MLB The Show, while other consoles are actually just stuck playing R.B.I. baseball. So join me today as we take a look at the good, the bad, and the greatest of baseball games for the Nintendo 64.
The first title that we are covering today is Triple Play 2000. Developed by Treyarch, who was one of the developers of the Call of Duty games, and published by EA Sports. The title was released in 1999 and is actually the only AAA game released on the Nintendo 64. I have a fond personal connection to this game, as I had picked it up around release and spent quite a bit of time playing the season mode. The graphics of the title are solid for the era, with adequate sound over other titles in this video. While it looks good, the PlayStation and PC versions are considered more superior to this port due to the exclusion of some audio features, including Buck Martinez's commentary, along with some performance and gameplay benefits seen on the other two platforms. All the while, the gameplay has been cited as slow-paced, with frequent pauses in the game due to the pitch selection menus and options. Hitting in the game is easier than other titles in the video, and when I was more skilled in the game back in the day, I had no problem building up stats for my players, though the game gives you an adequate challenge on both ends. Overall, due to my fondness of the title and its generally decent qualities, I have to consider this one of the better titles presented today. The game is very cheap and definitely worth a playthrough, though there are other games featured that will succeed this title in terms of quality. Where Treyarch and EA Sports excelled with a moderate quality baseball game on the platform, Konami brought a different approach and level of quality to the Nintendo 64 with Bottom of the Ninth. The game was released in 1999 and is considered to be the successor to the 1989 arcade game of the same title. The game features player likenesses in the game, some 300 players listed, whereas the teams are not officially licensed in the game. The positives to the game, unfortunately, are outweighed by the negatives from my personal experience. I can't really say many good things about the game. The graphics are subpar compared to most games on the list. The batting system is difficult to use, though I will admit I had a better time with the pitching system. The controls are weird and have a bit of a learning curve to them, not to mention issues across the board with AI in the game. All in all, it's a functional game, but barely. I'd rate it in the lower tier of games on the system, and I'd only recommend it if you're picking it up for essentially nothing. Next, we have a full series of AllStar Baseball, which is comprised of AllStar Baseball 99, 2000, and 2001. Developed by Iguana Entertainment and published by Acclaim Entertainment, these games are considered to be the most realistic of the bunch released for the Nintendo 64. Overall, the series gradually improved year over year, with 2001 generally being regarded as one of the best baseball titles on the Nintendo 64. Like most sports titles, they were all released the year before advertised on the box, and most play similar, though there are slight variances across the games. The series is highly regarded for its high-quality graphics, tight controls, and significant realism in the player models. Additionally, the game boasts detailed accessories, stances, and more to further improve the realism of the game. The same game engine is used for each iteration, which helps the improvement process with each release. AllStar Baseball 99 was the weakest in terms of bugs in the game, as that was commonly a cited issue with the title. The later titles also benefit from the expansion pack, whereas 99 does not. All in all, the AllStar Baseball series is top-notch and definitely one of the best in the lineup of these games. I highly recommend this series if you're looking for more realism in your sports games on the console.
I will admit before going into the discussion on Japanese baseball games that I do not know any Japanese whatsoever, though I can formulate enough to be able to navigate through the menus and load up a game. There were quite a few baseball games that were exclusively released in the Japanese market on the Nintendo 64. These games were based on the Nippon Professional Baseball League, which at one time contained the team the Daiei Hawks, who actually received their own special Nintendo 64 console in the Japanese market. While I can't comment on the depth of these games, I will just provide some basic details of each game and then just some basic commentary on the gameplay itself.
The first game in this section is Chokukan Night Pro Yakuken, along with the sequel in the series. This is translated to King Chokukan Night Baseball. The first game was released in 1996, while the follow-up title was released in 1999. They were both developed by Genkai and published by Imagineer. The games feature short, stubby players with big heads, similar to some of the later Power Pro titles, which I'll discuss later in this video. The pitching and batting interface is intuitive and easy to use. One concern is the amount of HUD data on the screen while trying to play, more particularly the size of the scoreboard in the top left. While I can't comment on many of the changes in the second game, I can state that the gameplay is quite similar and it's just as responsive as the first. All of that said, these games are quite fun to play and they're some of my favorite Japanese baseball games featured today. The next title is Famista 64, developed and published by Namco as a holiday title for 1997. One interesting thing about this game is that it is one of the few titles released by Namco on the Nintendo 64. This is a sequel to a long line of Famista games starting with the Pro Baseball Family Stadium on the Nintendo Famicom in 1986. The game sports quality animations despite the simplicity of the 3D player models. The gameplay is reminiscent of Ken Griffey Jr.'s winning run in terms of how the player can interact with the pitching, fielding, and batting systems. It is one of the more simple styles of the games shown today, with the 3D pitching batting interface changing to show 2D animations during the fielding process, which is similar to how Winning Run handled it previously on the SNES. All in all, I find this game quite fun and not too hard to play, even with the language barrier. It is definitely worth a play if you emulate it or have a Japanese compatible console. Next on this Japanese list is the series Jikyu Powerful Pro Yakyu, known in the West as the Power Pros series, which featured 5 titles on the Nintendo 64, all of which featured similar gameplay, menus, and comments from me. The series was developed by Konami and features the main series along with some other spin-off ones, including their Season series. The titles on the Nintendo 64 included Jikyu Powerful Pro Yakyu 4, 5, 6, 2000, and Basic Bond 2001, all released sequentially from 1997 to 2001. It's a long-running series that started with the Super Famicom and still continues today with a Nintendo Switch released. The gameplay is quite fast, though the graphics are less than stellar on the platform's releases, though it's reminiscent of those on the SNES. The batting and pitching interfaces are 2D sprites with the fielding interface similar to that of the Famista series. It is also found that the batting to be significantly more difficult than other titles in this video. Overall, it is one of my least favorite baseball titles to play on the Nintendo 64, though I can understand the appeal of it with the long-running series. To wrap up our Japanese section, we are covering Power League 64, which was developed and published by Hudson Soft and released in 1997. I would say that this is one of the easier Japanese baseball games to play for a person in the West in terms of additional English text over some of the other games mentioned in this section. While the presentation and 3D models are decent, the overall graphics are average at best, as well as the gameplay. I personally found this game to be more difficult than most others discussed today, though it's not impossible. I did find that the batter controls to be a bit wonky, and overall the game is a bit clunky, but serviceable. All of that said, it fits right in the middle in terms of game quality for baseball titles on the Nintendo 64. Let's move back over to some English language baseball titles. While the Japanese games in this video offered a wide array of quality, the quality level of this next title is disheartening. Mike Piazza's Strike Zone was released in 1998, prior to him joining the Mets, with Devil's Thumb Entertainment as the developer and published by GT Interactive. The game features a fully licensed roster with a large amount of customizable features. This, unfortunately, cannot carry this game. Prior to going into detail on this game, I will admit that I have a decent amount of hours into this game as a kid. I was a catcher for the majority of the time, and with Mike Piazza being a catcher, my parents figured it'd be a good pickup for me. I have fond memories of bashing home runs in this game, though it is quite easy to accomplish and the physics in the game are practically busted. The hitting system is also a joke, with the only variation being a red pitch for a strike and a blue pitch for a ball. The biggest problem, however, lies in the terrible graphics that are so basic and primitive, featuring generic player models, low frame rates, and generally everything sucks outside of the stadium design. This game was released in the same window as Major League Baseball featuring Ken Griffey Jr. and AllStar Baseball 99. It's pretty obvious that this game was essentially buried by most, and rightfully so. Despite my rose-colored glasses, I can't recommend this one. Last but certainly not least are the titles endorsed by Ken Griffey Jr., who is one of my favorite all-time sports heroes. Starting with Major League Baseball featuring Ken Griffey Jr. and followed by Ken Griffey Jr Slugfest, these arcade-style baseball titles were developed by Angel Studios and published as first-party titles by Nintendo. Major League Baseball featuring Ken Griffey Jr. was released in 1998 as a sequel to Ken Griffey Jr.'s Winning Run, which I had an insane amount of hours logged as a kid, and it was found on the Super Nintendo. Aside from the 3D aspect, this title featured licensed players as a huge bonus over Winning Run, which featured greats such as Rebel Ruiz on the Chicago Cubs. The game was praised for its fast arcade mode and incredible hitting interface that set a standard for later games on the platform. One of my favorite aspects of the game is the quality season mode that features relatively decent AI. Some complaints with the game are the easy difficulty level and overall lack of realism in the game, though this is the pinnacle baseball game for both my fiance and I still today. I do log quite a few hours into out-of-the-park baseball on PC these days as well. Next is Ken Griffey Jr Slugfest, which was released in 1999 and featured a Game Boy Color title released alongside of it. It is obviously considered to be the sequel to all Ken Griffey Jr games and would be the last of his line of games. While the gameplay is similar to the original Ken Griffey Jr game on the Nintendo 64, there were quite a few key improvements to the new game. First, the game featured a high-resolution mode that was compatible with the Nintendo 64 expansion pack. If you're playing without an expansion pack, it will run on normal or medium settings. The play-by-play system has improved a bit over the previous title, and there are also new cameras, player models, and animations. Ken Griffey Jr Slugfest and AllStar Baseball 2001 are considered to be the best baseball titles on the Nintendo 64. And personally, I believe that Slugfest edges out despite being a bit easier to play and having more of an arcade feel. I still believe this title has all of the necessary components to fulfill interest in both arcade and simulation style gaming.
All in all, there are a plethora of options available for baseball games on the Nintendo 64. Now, while I do hold a fondness for Mike Piazza's Strike Zone, it is an absolutely abysmal game that does not hold up well, and it sits there at the bottom with games like Bottom of the Ninth and a couple of the Japanese titles. Well, I will tell you though that there are quite a few gems on the system that are worth picking up today, and they're all reasonable priced in games such as the AllStar Baseball series or the Ken Griffey Jr series. Now, there's also games like Triple Play 2000 and a couple of the Japanese titles that are holding the middle ground. Overall, most of the games are worth giving a shot, and like I said, they're all reasonably priced and relatively easy to find. This wraps up today's Nintendo 64 in-depth on baseball games for the platform. Now, don't forget to like and subscribe if you did enjoy this video, and have a great rest of your day.